All right, good evening, everybody, and welcome to our Curriculum and Instruction Committee meeting. It's 5:35 on Monday, March 23rd, 2015. If we could just go around the table and ask the committee members to state their names. Our student representative is here. If you want to start on that side, that would be great.
Melissa Schroeder. Carol Bites.
David Rathgeb.
Connor Kurtz.
And Mary Beth Torsha.
All right, great. We have a pretty brief agenda tonight in terms of public comment. It'll be at the end of the meeting, and we have not too much. We don't have much turnout tonight, which is again disappointing, considering we're going to be talking about some of the great things we could do to make Daniel Boone a great school district. And I know I complained about this at the last meeting, and I'll report on that tonight. But it's always nice when we have members of the public come to help talk about what we can do to make this district even better, instead of the opposite. But moving on, item 1, elementary class size discussion. This is something that Mr. Rathgeb wanted to talk about, or requested to speak about. Would you like to kick off the discussion, or?
Well, sure. I think it's all the members here know that that's going to be coming up in Finance Committee, I think there's obviously two sides to the issue. One, we look at it from a budgetary point of view, but also from obviously a teaching point of view as well. My concern is that I don't want to see us start off the next year with all the elementary classes at their maximum range for what we have down in our guidance. Nor do I think we should have them at the minimum either. I'm hoping for some kind of happy medium here. If we can come to some decision there.
Does anybody have a copy of the policy with them?
Well, we don't have a policy. It is a guideline, and it is really suggested class size ranges. And on the top of the enrollment form that you receive each month, it's up there as well. And for kindergarten, the suggested class size ranges are 18 students to 22 students, grades 1 to 3, 20 to 24 students, and then grades 4 to 5, 22 to 26 students.
Well, now let me ask a question there, because I know Mr. Basil did pass around a policy. Is that an old policy that was
The only policy that I'm aware of, which I thought he passed around, was about the class sizes being no less than 10. I thought that was the policy that he was
in circulation.
Maybe I'm getting them mixed up.
There is a policy regulating class size. I think it is these numbers.
It's really a guideline, though. Yeah.
Okay.
Did you see it? Find it, Mrs. Yeah. I know I've been through it quite a few times, and I'm 99% sure that it is a guideline.
Okay. In terms of the numbers themselves, though, I don't know how to describe these ranges as anything but arbitrary. That being said, I don't know how to describe any range for this stuff. There's no ideal number, I don't think. Maybe there's a percentage.
I think there are recommendations in the PAE website.
So state recommendations? Like, I wonder how they get to those conclusions.
I think they mirror those.
That's interesting.
And I have, and I didn't bring it with me. I know I filed it, and I filed it too well. But I do have a document that was sent out from the county with regard to what schools in our neighboring and within the whole county as far as their class sizes. And I'll look and see if I can find that.
Also, refresh my memory, because when it comes to aides, do all the elementary classrooms have aides?
No, they do not.
Just the special needs? No.
Some special ed students have one-on-one aides, okay? And then there are a few elementary aides that are used to support kindergarten, support first grade, second grade. We've been supporting our lower numbers, and I know that, or lower class range classes. And Melanie, speak up. But we do have. Do we have an aide at Birdsboro and or Amity that are not special ed aides? Do we have a couple of those? Okay, and they're really there to support the kindergarten rooms.
And just for the number, it's administrative guideline 117.
117.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well,
Let me add, before we move on, that Mr. Doty has arrived for the sake of the recording. All right. For me, in terms of the whole class size discussion, if we have great staff, and I'm confident we do, then I think they're able to respond to whatever class size is really thrown at them. And that's not me advocating for larger classes. I don't know how we can find the perfect number. I don't know what procedure that is, or even the perfect range. I think it varies for each class, too. Perhaps a foreign language class, but we're not talking about foreign language. We're talking about elementary.
In this day and age, I would think that, I could be speaking out of school here, so to speak. I would think in today's classes, as opposed to, years ago, you do have more mainstream kids. You do have, I think, unfortunately, you don't have the same parental involvement like you used to have years ago.
I'm curious in terms of how many, how this changes like compared to last year. Do we have fewer students in each class? Do we have more students in each class? Is it pretty much the same? I'm guessing it's within this guidance range.
We're pretty consistent this year with the realignment that was done, taking Monocacy and Birdsboro and turning them into a K2 and then 3-5 center, by being able to have more teachers within a grade level. We were able to really space them out. Our kindergarten numbers are a little bit higher in a few classes at Monocacy, but then we lost a few at Amity, so they're they're a little bit below with 18 and 19 students. But quite honestly, if you didn't have that class, if you didn't have 4 teachers or half-day classes, you'd have kindergarten students with much larger numbers, especially at Amity. But 23 students to a class in first grade, that's pretty good. It appears when I see a 17 or a 19 that students have moved out of that classroom, because we typically do begin our class ranges at the middle, part of where we need to be.
And in line with our declining enrollment, do they typically lose students as the year goes on?
It varies. We have some losing, we have some leaving, and then we see others moving in.
Would you say it's 50-50, 75% leaving, 25% coming in?
Without Mr. Hurley being here, and I'm not seeing all the numbers, I tend to see more middle school of what's happening there, just because that guidance secretary includes me in on the withdrawals. But I can certainly get those numbers. Those are easy numbers that we can.
Yeah, I think that would be
get.
beneficial in terms of determining where we start.
Our fourth grade numbers are a little bit lower for this year, with 20 students in them. But our fifth grade numbers, they're right about where they need to be, with 24 and 25 students in the class, especially since the upper number is 26. So I'd have to say fifth grade's definitely right where we need it to be. Fourth grade, there's a little bit of wiggle room. The only problem is, when you take away that additional staff member, then your numbers are going up high. If we would have the current number of students in fourth grade at Birdsboro going into fifth grade next year, and we would eliminate one, we would have 24 kids starting, which would be fine. With third grade going into fourth grade, if we eliminated one, we'd have 25 to 26 students starting. And that's a little bit tight to start with, especially on the Birdsboro.
Do we have these numbers that show the?
Yeah. Well, I did math by taking away a staff member and doing the dividing out, but the numbers are included on your monthly enrollment. So.
Okay. How many teachers do we have retiring?
We have 2 teachers retiring that I know of. One that has submitted a letter, and one that submitted a letter saying that he would be retiring sometime mid-July, which, is fine. We have those 2. That's all that I know of right now.
When is the deadline for them to get you those letters?
really whenever they are ready to retire. It's working their stuff out
Because
with teachers. They have their 90 days over the summer, so.
Well, there's also, I mean, there are budgetary implications, so it might be prudent to establish a window.
We do. We sent something out in January asking if there's going to be a change in their employment for next year, but a lot of times we might not get the final.
Can we establish a deadline? Say by this date, if you're going to retire next year, you got to let us know. Because again, in terms of the planning.
We could try, but wouldn't stop them from retiring.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think that we can prevent them from saying, you know
Well,
what?
additionally, there's also the question of if there's going to be substantial savings, we want to hold them to a deadline. I don't know.
Yeah.
We could discuss it at
I
a later
know.
date.
That would be a tough one.
Yeah. I don't know. In terms of a recommendation, though, I don't have myself any type of expertise, and I don't know even if people purport to when it comes to these ranges.
Well,
What the perfect number is, what makes 19 better than 18?
Well, yeah, I don't know.
At the elementary level, I mean, 25 would definitely be like an alert for me. It would be something I'd be really comfortable even doing if we had to at the elementary level.
And again, 25 it works in fifth grade, fourth grade. They're moving around. They're more, they are more independent. They are better at taking
And
direction.
that's working out because we have so many at that.
We're-
You're okay with that?
We
I
are.
wouldn't want that
yeah.
ever to go over that
No.
personally.
My
Just
biggest
on my
concern would be
experience.
seeing 25 or 26 sitting in a second or third grade classroom. I wouldn't want to see that.
What's your feeling there, like 22, 20? Just gut feeling.
22, 23. I wouldn't. If it got to 24, just
That
by
would be
chance,
a
that's the
red
way it
flag.
goes. But to start at 24, it would be a little bit.
Yeah.
When
It wouldn't make me comfortable.
When I was in elementary school, I think due to resources just having to be allocated certain ways, there were classes where you had students who needed the aid, the special support. And I know with the mainstreaming and all that, we try to distribute more evenly. However, there are, I guess the question I'm asking is it uniform? Or are there classes where you have a higher proportion or a higher concentration of students who need more individualized support?
No.
Okay.
We spread those students out so that one homeroom teacher does not have an overabundance of children with an IEP, whether it be a GIEP, because there's certain work that comes with, making sure that you're growing those students as well as students who have an individual education plan for learning. So those numbers are evenly spread out. And then you have to look at children who have Title I. Who are identified for Title I. So those children are coming out. They don't have an IEP, but you know that they're at risk, in reading and or math. And then you have the rest of the kids that are there and need that you want to call normal, but there can be other things that are going on in their lives as well.
So do we commonly have like aides dropping in and out of the K-1-2 group with like IEP kids that are?
We have if there is a student who's identified with a specific disability, autism, Down syndrome, multiple handicap, those children typically have a one-on-one aide that follow them.
Right.
So they're there to meet the needs of that child. Do they help out when they're in a classroom? Absolutely. If there's a student who is struggling and their child and their individual student is doing okay, they're of course going to help somebody else out. But it's not their responsibility per se. Right. They're there for that child. And that's written specific to the IEP, and then it's also charged through access. So
You can't factor that in.
Right.
The time that they're in those classrooms.
Right.
When you're considering class size.
Right.
I'd like to jump in here because, again, we are having a very abbreviated meeting tonight. In terms of what this committee could do, I think, for me personally, I'd like to see what the Finance Committee proposes and then respond if we need to.
Let's do that.
I don't want to fire the first shot, so to speak, because I'm not sure personally.
Right. I just wanted to get it
Yeah.
out there so we could have get that on the radar.
Yeah, it is worth discussing, especially if we're going to be discussing it in the financial context. It makes a lot of sense to discuss it in the educational context.
But they should be considering the guidelines that are out there.
Yeah, I think
in the
I think
finance.
there's a lot to consider in that discussion, and it shouldn't just be dollars and
Shoot
cents.
from the middle of the road like we always did, and then we should be able to talk about the flags.
Yeah. Well, we can then, I'd like to move on to item 2, AP Human Geography and Writing Springboard. Mr. McKnight's presentation. We're low on time,
Yes,
so if
sir.
maybe you want to give us...
Very short presentation tonight, only 4 slides, and that's one of them. So,
Okay, well,
Great, yeah.
pretty self-explanatory.
there you go. The College Board, and
Although,
we talked.
is that an apple up top?
Is that
It's an
map?
acorn.
An apple? Or is that a map? What is that?
It's an acorn.
That's an acorn.
Yeah, it's eight.
Oh, okay, I got it. Okay, all right, good. All right.
So, the question we want to talk about a little bit tonight is advanced placement in human geography. So, the reason that when we went through the presentation at the last meeting, and we kind of looked at some pathway pieces and some of the elements that we'll see again later tonight, one of the cornerstone pieces is advanced placement in human geography because it's a gateway AP course, meaning that it is the easiest of the AP courses. Not easy. Don't mistake easy for easiest. So we're looking at a course where introducing this in a pilot program next year in 9th grade for about 15 students that will be identified based on data. They'd be advancing reading, advancing writing coming out of 8th grade. The question may be, are 9th graders ready for AP? And the answer is, in a previous experience, we did this model. We grew it. It started out with 15. Today, there are around 60% of the 9th grade students in that program who take this course, of which 83 or so percent get a 3, 4, or 5. So clearly, kids are ready for it.
Yeah.
The other great piece is that, as you can surmise, in 10th grade, they take another AP course, or 2. The really strong kids will take 2. 11th grade will take 1 or 2. Many of the kids obviously leave school with 15 credits or more, which as parents who are paying for college, as I am now and some of you are, that's a semester tuition free. So it's a big advantage, but more importantly, it puts our kids on a competitive stage with the rest of the kids in the country. And I think for our kids who can handle that's fair. So what are the details? The devil's always in the details. So staffing available, yes, we have 1 social studies staff member. I did some background work. It would be 1 or 2 sections. We have to see what the right size model is here in a pilot. Estimated cost of material is $125 per student. That does not count the test. Cultural Landscape AP edition, that's the book that we would have to purchase. Training staff would be around $1,400, of which we have money. This is no new money. We have money in the budget now to do this. Scheduling, we can schedule it. You're talking about a one-off course. $3,950 would be the total cost to get this up and running.
And all budgeted now.
Well, we have money now.
Okay.
There's money in the system in the current budget to move forward with. I can click on the AP Human Geography link if you want to see the course description. I can also mail it to you guys. As Ms. Bites shared with me last time, the attachments didn't work, so I had to mail those additionally. So that's a key piece on AP Human Geography for you to digest and give some thought to. It's not, we don't need an answer today, but we probably need one. I don't know what our meeting schedule time is, but our guidance counselor who deals with AP, who has to submit syllabus or syllabi, needs to do it in the near future.
Do you have a firmer date on that? Is it the end of next month?
It's within the month.
Okay.
So it may
Because our next
impact
meeting
schedule.
is going to be the next, like our cycle for this is typically like this night, next month, like before the voting meeting.
And guys, if we're not ready to move forward, it's okay. I mean, I think we can take time, but it would also be a good first step into the process for sure. One of the things as I continue to do the analysis on the high school, we are heavy in some areas in AP. Science has a lot of AP. And then there are some areas where we're not very heavy. And so I want to say we're around 13 AP courses in the high school, about which are half are in science. So normalizing that, if you will, into other areas would be a good plan. So how you want to go about that, what would the direction and how you'd like to go, but certainly would be valuable. The second piece of the program is 9th grade AP Springboard Writing. This is more of a writing program, which we would marry for the AP kids. One of the things, when you talk to students about AP, and you talk to teachers about AP, what's the weakest area? It's their ability to write in the AP format. Springboard used to be called pre-AP and was often offered in 6th, 7th, 8th grade to kids to help them learn how to write for AP. So I have no jurisdiction in middle school, so we're talking right now in 9th grade. offering this writing program. It's not a separate course, although it can be, but it would not be meant to be a separate course. But we'd have it delivered in one section in English or across the English curriculum. We have to have more discussion. Again, no new monies. Cost the money is there, although we probably tap out here at this point, what we have left in the budget. And the course description is also linked there.
Well, I actually just realized that we could probably go a little bit later than 6 because our meeting isn't starting until 6:10 or 6:15. Can I jump in and start commenting? Okay, I think a few things. One, this committee should be fully aware how I feel about AP courses. They're the best thing we can do to get some of our students into great colleges, saving the parents money, letting our students graduate earlier and get into the workforce and actually begin earning money. So I think this is excellent. In terms of the writing component, I'd like to do a little bit more research personally, but that being said, writing is the #1 skill that you need in the post-high school, post-college world. I remember, and I don't want to waste time, but now that we have a little bit more, I can give a little anecdote. Sonia Sotomayor, one of the associate justices on the Supreme Court, gave a talk in the Bronx to a group of high schoolers, and the question was asked, what's the most important skill I need after leaving high school or leaving college? And her response was, you need to know how to write persuasively. And I think that goes for any walk of life. You need to learn how to not only write persuasively, but just to write. So I'm not too familiar with the program. I'm guessing it has a track record of success. If it's still around, and if you're advocating for it, I'm
It does, and I will send you all the PDFs that you guys can read through it. It doesn't want to it would take a long time to visit all that tonight. I'll send it out to you tomorrow if you guys are comfortable. I'll do that.
I'd also note that our writing scores are one of our weaker areas, I believe, as a district on the whole. So I'm wondering also if we were to go with this program and we wanted to expand it to the middle school, maybe 1 year testing it in the high school might be prudent. On the other hand, if we think it's going to be a surefire thing, maybe we could do it right off the bat. Would that be an additional cost? Is this per student?
It would be because their program has consumables, and the consumables are renewable each year.
Okay.
So there's a cost to that consumable.
And we can't make photocopies?
Well, you can if you're going to break the law.
Okay.
In terms of copyright the law.
Whatever happened to the transparencies we used to put up when I was in school?
Technology.
Yeah.
But, I'll send it to you. You can digest it. It's a strong course in learning how to write specifically for AP and college specifically is
And that's one of my questions also. Is it, when you say writing for AP, how does that differ from writing in general?
Well, I think if you ask a student to answer a DBQ, a database question, and have to write for that, most kids don't even know what that means.
Yeah.
So
most adults don't know what it means.
Correct.
If you haven't taken an AP course.
There are some specificities to AP that are addressed, but it also is just a strong writing program, so writing persuasively.
Well, I'd like to see if we go with it, and let other people talk here in a second. If we could tie it, not just from for AP specifically. Now, it could be for AP students, and everything with students and the students who need it most. But if we could also tie it back to just writing in general. So after you're finished with AP, these are the skills we learned in Springboard that we can translate to the rest of life.
Well, the great value in the pilot piece would be we get a good chance to see it and get a sense of that before we go broader.
Yeah.
And that's the value of the pilot. Sometimes it's just good, hey, we know it's good and we go forward all the way, and sometimes it's good to pilot. I think this late stage of the year and in scheduling plan, I think maybe most groups will pilot out. Okay.
Well, my personal view, and I want to have discussion here, I'd like to move this to the full board for them to consider doing. I think it's good. There's also the question of even what, and this is something I think we need to talk about on the board level, what do we need to refer to the full board and what's more of an administrative thing that you guys will handle and you're just bringing to us really for input.
I do believe that this would be administrative. The money is already there. It makes sense. We're already working on writing at the elementary level. We've identified that through the Ready to Learn grant, being able to support anything that we need to do with curriculum writing or staff development. That's all already there. So I would,
There is the additional component, however, that this would, not Springboard, but the additional AP class would alter the course selection guide, which needs full board approval.
Right.
So that course would likely have to be approved by the full board.
Correct.
The question is going to come up. Okay, we have the money here now, but we have the program now we're locked into.
Well, it's not a program that really needs continued financial support outside of...
Yeah, in full disclosure, the textbook will be
Right.
the cost going forward.
Right.
And that would be your cost.
Right.
Since I don't does the school pay for the AP test or the student pay?
Students
In
do.
this district school,
Students.
the student does, but
Yeah.
we could find some grant money, I think, to help with scholarships.
So if the student either fails or opts not to take the test, they still get credit for the course.
They don't get the full
but they don't
weight.
get AP.
My understanding is they don't get the full weight of the course.
And that's something I think we should discuss at some point at this committee level too, because I don't understand how not taking the final exam that you have to pay money for negates all the work you did previously in the course. I mean, you shouldn't get the weight. And that, to me, that doesn't make sense. But that's a topic, I guess, for a later date. But I'm glad you brought it up.
I don't know the answer. Maybe Jenny, you do, or Megan. I would think that everybody has to, if you're in an AP class, you have to take the test.
And that was, I think, the reason behind that was to encourage them because they want the weight to take the AP exam.
Right.
Well, additionally, taking the AP exam gets you the college credit.
Right.
So
Right.
if you don't take the exam, you're not getting that college
Right.
credit.
Exactly.
I know the committee talked about this like 3 or 4 years ago. And yeah, does any student not take the exam? Has that, in recent memory, has
All I
that...
can tell you is the numbers, 2013 students were 105 students took AP test. And this year, this past year was 123. So we're in the process
moving
of
up.
scheduling. So it's growing.
Great.
I don't think there was many that.
I'd like to add also, because we've had some concerns about having certain AP classes with fewer than 10 students in them. If we add this writing component, perhaps that will boost enrollment in those courses down the line, and we won't have to worry
Well,
about
I also
offering...
think adding the gateway course of
Yeah.
human geography should boost that.
I would like to also... I said I wanted to move on to other people, and I'm just co-opting the conversation.
So what, just to finish out my thought, what you're saying is that cost of material is the recurring cost. The training, once the staff training, then should be...
That's it, yeah. Unless you bring a new staff member in and you have to bring them up to speed. But,
Okay.
Sorry to interrupt.
That's what I make sure I ask.
I was also going to ask, in terms of bringing students into the pilot program, you mentioned you'd be looking at data, which I think is excellent in terms of letting those students and their parents know that these courses will be out there. Additionally, I don't know, if I were in 8th grade and maybe I didn't fit each of the criteria and would be looking at, but maybe I was close at some of them and I heard that we were offering this course and I love geography, would I be able to maybe schedule an appointment with my guidance counselor and perhaps if there's that drive there, like I don't want to see a kid locked out who may be more interested than the other kids who may just miss 1 or 2 of the benchmarks, and that's in general how I feel about these
generally,
things.
when we build out a piece of data or data collections, you want to have multiple data points, okay? And then and you build out a rubric that, let's say there's 4 data points, and each one's worth 1 to 4, you end up with 16 possible. So your range would be 13 to 16, those guys get in. But you also have to give them a possibility of how they can do work over the summer, retest on some of the data points for another shot. You have to, the tricky part is you don't want to close gates, but you also don't want to put kids in over their head that they're drowning. So that's the fine art of it.
And a lot of it comes down, I think, to discretion of staff, discretion
And really
of
having a
parents.
conversation with parents and kids. At the point when they're on the borderline, you really have to meet and discuss. And have
I'll tell you, when I was in 9th grade, I was on the borderline. I had gotten back from the Outer Banks. The next day I had to take a final exam. Got a 90 on the final exam, needed a 92. I wasn't going to be in honors English. When I graduated down Boone High School, I was in AP English. It's one of my favorite things. So again, some of those
You
barriers.
can't have a single data point.
Exactly.
Right. I think after Preston's presentation this evening, later, with regard to some changes that he wants to make to the course selection guide, that if that's going to occur, then we would have to present the course selection guide a bit altered, so it would be the right time for us to be able to go ahead and put that on for April to approve, if the board so chooses to.
So what you're
support
recommending, that you'd like us to consider tonight whether to add it, and then if we give a go-ahead, you'll bring the...
And adding it doesn't necessarily mean it will run.
Yes.
It would mean, that he'd have to have the numbers to support it and go from there, but to have it as an option wouldn't
Ms.
hurt.
Schroeder, do you want to say something?
May I?
Oh, Ms. Bice, I thought, okay.
If you're done.
That's like your-
No, you should.
Yeah.
I just think the AP classes, I know a lot of kids talk about how much they like them, and I think you get more of like something I said, more of like a variety of them. So a lot of kids are just taking more to help them get into college.
Yeah.
I think it's a good idea.
Mrs. Bites?
Well, I guess I gotta be a the wet blanket here. I don't really feel, I'm not as big a fan as Mr. Kurtz is of the AP offerings. I think we offer enough. I don't think it's our objective to save families money. I think that whole attitude is sort of exclusionary. I think that it's not, versus inclusionary. I don't think our AP students should get a disproportionate share of the district resources. With that said, we're also talking about allocating the human resource to accommodate this plan, and that human resource is a social studies teacher that would be teaching the class, and that's kind of a different direction than where this committee wanted to go. If we have a human resource, I thought we were talking about expanding into civics.
I think there should be a civics component. I don't know the full.
This is AP Human Geography, and I don't know.
We could always
looked at it. It's
when
not
it
really
comes
geography, and it's not really humanities.
When it comes to any course, we could always inject more into it. This is the guideline. This is the base where we have to start. This is what they're going to be tested on for the AP test. I think we should be injecting civics into everything.
I'm just
from
saying,
math
I'm not really
to
interested in bringing any more AP classes at this time.
Okay. All right, Mr. Doty, do you have any thoughts?
I looked at the geography a little bit and looked at some of the questions and things like that. And I was concerned a little bit about some of the content in there. Some of the some things I think are taught as fact today that are not necessarily fact, and that bothers me. So I was troubled with some of the things I saw in there. I think there, depending on the teacher teaching the class, there's some wiggle room where they might go a little too far with some of the topics that are presented in that class. And these we're talking about were 9th grade classes. So I also have concern with the age of the mind and sitting in the seat in the classroom, hearing things and maybe coming home to mommy and daddy and saying, no, I'm hearing this, and now they're at odds with their parents, some of their parents' more core values. So I struggle with that a little bit, I went to college and I heard some things that I didn't agree with, and I had to take a test and write the answer that the teacher wanted us to give, and I did that. And I knew better, and it is what it is, but there were some things in there that concerned me a little bit. I'm not sure. You have experience with it, I don't.
Yeah, to your point, you always have, it becomes an issue of trusting our staff, monitoring our staff, and seeing what's going on, responding to things that we hear. But in terms of things that are opposed to the parents' core value system, if it leads to a dialogue between students and parents about a topic, I think that's a fantastic thing.
It is.
So, in the end, I think the parents will, help their children understand and engaging them in the educational program would be an excellent thing to me, not a thing.
Mr. Rathgeb, do you have some comments beyond your question earlier?
I too looked at, I know Mrs. Bice was concerned. I did take a peek at the class, and I can, in college, obviously, in college, we're supposed to have a conversation for all sides of the issue. And hopefully that would be the case. I could see, I think one of the topics was colonialism.
Yeah.
And, I could see how both sides of that being, there was definitely some downsides to it. But if you consider the British Empire spreading the court systems around, their court legal system around the globe, that's a great thing that they did.
Yeah, sure.
That colonialism did. But there was a lot of downsides to it. So as long as they're getting both sides of that, I think that's fine. I just want to make sure it's not a one-sided conversation. But I think if I had the chance to take that class, I would. If I was, that's the fascinating thing.
Well, and I think the other big piece is that, for me anyway, it's this gateway opportunity. That piece that will expand our kids into that model. And to Mrs. Mike's point, that I would say we want to expand other opportunities for all kids, not just AP kids. So we want to monitor the disproportionality of what we give AP kids versus other kids. And we want to make sure that we're providing internships and growth opportunities in other areas that are not AP. And that really it falls on me and our team to create that and bring that to you and say, look, there's an opportunity I just had the Birch Better Business Coalition in, talking about how they want to partner and get internships for our kids.
Great.
You know, they're running a program on that side. So there are a lot of things like that I think we need to be responsive to.
Yeah, I think in terms of this, how I look at it, we are offering our future students a significant leg up over our current and former students, and offering not only this specific course at the 9th grade level when you don't have any really other AP options, but also in the future because it gets them interested in the program, and it's a great program. And saving money isn't the objective, but it's a very beneficial side effect. Obviously, our goal for everything we do is high quality, top quality education. On that note, I would like to look for a recommendation from the committee to move this on to the full board
see the
for
materials?
discussion.
Can we see the materials before we make a decision?
Well, I'd like to have the board discuss it. We're going to make a final decision with the course selection guide when that comes out. But right now, I'd like to give the
You're saying
administration...
course materials, shouldn't we have a chance to look at them?
Well, we can do that before voting to approve the course formally in the course selection guide. But I'd like to get... I don't want to stop the administration from moving forward because we don't have the course guide at this point.
I'll mail it to
I
you.
have
we
it.
have that, we
We're talking
have,
about the
yeah.
actual book. Yeah, that's where we were looking at.
Oh, you want the
got
actual...
you. Okay.
You want the
We wanted
textbook?
to see the textbook, yep.
Okay, can you get us a copy of the textbook for our next meeting?
I will call them, but the turnaround time may be not
Okay.
this problem.
Is this something we could check out at the Alvernia Library or something?
It's a great question.
Or maybe
don't
not.
know.
I don't
can
know.
find out for you.
Yeah, or if a neighboring school district or somebody has a
They
book,
have a
we
pretty
can share
extensive
it.
library.
Regardless, if this committee votes to take this discussion to the full board, I think giving you the ability to look into this more and to get us the material we need, I don't want to abort the process here. I'd rather continue it.
Are we voting to continue the process?
yeah.
Because I am voting to the full board.
Okay, I guess this would be to take it to the full board. We have to have a discussion at that level, I guess. So this is to have a discussion later on with the board, because for this type of thing, again, I'm asking, for the course selection guide, it needs to go to the full board. Actually, you know what? I don't know. I think
But
for...
what's the recommendation of the committee?
Let me just figure out what we're actually going to be voting on first, I guess. Because the full board, we're going to need to approve the course selection guide. And that's actually the only thing that would be changing. So
By adding this course and whatever
The
changes.
allocation of that teacher that's going to be...
that would have to
teaching
change. I mean, that would go with the course selection guide. That scheduling, we don't vote on scheduling. The administration determines where the teachers
I'm
go.
saying if there's a resource free, then shouldn't we have a discussion on how we want that resource used?
One or two sections, it's one or two classes.
2 classes are talking about.
The other question about the course selection book is, would you put a pilot in the course selection book, or would you run a pilot off the book and then...
That's what I was
next
thinking
year?
too.
That's what I was thinking would be the...
I don't really know if it would be... I'm sorry, I'll let you talk,
Go
Brian.
ahead, please do.
The writing, I mean, and I'm all for, in line with what you were saying, I'm all for AP courses. I think the more that we can do to prep kids to get out in college and do well, and, you know, they need to be challenged as well. Some kids sit through high school and they're bored to death. So we can fix that problem for them too. But I'd like to see this tried out. Like, I'd like to see how well students actually take to it, you know? I mean, I think that's...
So you're suggesting identifying the kids and then approaching them to see if they have interest without actually publishing this in the curriculum?
That would be my recommendation now, the
Okay.
pilot program.
Then that would go to the board tonight then, because they would need to be in the loop about that. So I guess the vote we'll take right now is to take this discussion to the full board tonight so that we can give them a go-ahead. So this is just to take it to the board, not...
Fine.
So we support taking it to the board tonight.
Yeah, I would,
yeah.
A pilot.
A pilot.
Yeah.
Okay. So we have unanimous support to take it to the board to discuss. Okay, great.
Yeah.
All right, I have on here other topics. We don't have time to talk about other topics. In terms of stuff we want this committee to talk about, does anybody have anything on the top of their mind right now for a future agenda? If not,
Yeah.
email it to me.
I have one thing that just came up, and it came up over the weekend, and it's very, I don't know, it's ambiguous, I guess you could say, but my wife, she talks with other teachers and stuff like that, and she was online on Facebook, and it was actually somebody yard sailing something, but they said they had moved into Daniel Boone School District for 1 year, and they moved out immediately following that year because their fourth graders were a full year behind. They basically learned over again the same curriculum that they did in third grade in a Montgomery County school district. and that's why I said it's ambiguous, because I don't know which one, and I don't know any details, but there were two people who said this almost identical things,
Well,
and I was like, that's just.
would you be able to get more details on that? Not the specific case per se.
It has to be.
Well,
Yeah,
right, it has to be true, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it was their own personal
Is there anything
experience.
in our scores that jumps out at you when you hear that?
Well, that to me is an obvious,
The only
glaring.
thing, the only thing that comes to my mind is that everyone's curriculum is to be aligned to the state standards, so I don't know how
Right.
that can happen when all the fourth graders are supposed to, be
Unless it was a
learning.
private school,
Could be.
comparing private
Yeah, that
school.
could
No,
be.
I did ask that clarifying question.
Well, I guess
for sure.
if you guys would be able
But you don't know what school district
and
they come
I
from.
felt odd even bringing it up, but when my wife was telling me about it, I was just blown away.
Yeah, that's,
I was like, there's no way. And
Additionally, I don't know how you would, because it could mean something as silly almost as
Yeah.
my kid learned a science. Well, he did a science lab. He did the year before,
Yeah.
and that could
Yeah.
maybe taking that up to the next level,
That's
trying to
true.
get a
Yeah.
political spin on it.
Yeah.
So I mean, it could mean
hey.
a lot though. Maybe they're learning maybe they're learning calculus in 9th grade. Who knows?
yeah, to me that would be
I doubt it, but-
a huge.
Yeah.
One
If
thing we
get us some
have,
specifics, maybe we could look into that more.
and one thing we have noticed is when kids move in during the school year, sometimes the sequencing
Yeah,
is
the
a little bit
sequencing.
different.
True.
But that's all, within the same years.
it could depend
Go on.
on what math materials they're using.
There's a lot.
Yeah,
of variables.
there are a lot of
They couldn't have
variables.
moved out of our district knowing that the kids would be a year
and
ahead of the next district.
I guess that's why it bothered me
Learn
so
that
much,
when you do
because
it.
I was like, how can that possibly be true?
And who would
But people
move
were out there blasting
that
that
quickly?
around,
Yeah. I don't
And,
know.
and you're moving that quickly?
Yeah.
Like the thing I don't get, you wouldn't know that your kid's a year ahead in that district until you're actually out there. So you couldn't have been inspired to leave Daniel Boone knowing that.
They,
You
yeah,
wouldn't have
they-
known.
I don't know
I don't
for what reason they moved, but they were like, oh, the schools, they were a year behind, and we moved back. And,
All right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, all right. Is there? I
have
guess.
one quick issue.
Sure.
And I understand it's kind of commonplace in the district, but I thought we should have a discussion about it. I understand that at AEC, one of the social studies teachers has been pulled to help with math, because on math, I guess we're not on track for our PSSEs in 3rd grade. And I heard that before, and I just wanted to have some public discussion about it, because then when I understand what we do then is go back and teach, we double up on the social studies after the math tests are completed.
We don't have
I do
social
not.
studies teachers designated at third grade?
It's not accurate.
Yeah.
3rd grade, it's not accurate.
No.
It's not accurate.
Can I talk to you about that part of
Sure.
it?
Yeah.
I actually have a name, and
Anytime.
Yeah,
I heard it from one of them.
yeah, we don't switch for third
So we
grade
don't do that? 'Cause I thought
social
I heard that
studies.
before.
No, we switch for math. Math is the only class in 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade
They're
that
not
this.
switching. What they're saying is that the social studies teacher was teaching some of the math curriculum. They were doubling up on the math because we're falling short on the benchmarks.
I understand what you're saying.
Don't
The testing and
We
don't
have
some of the, I know we don't have the extra, what was the math program we used to
Yeah, but I know exactly what you're. I know what
Don't
you're.
Don't we
say
have-
Go
don't we
Math
have one of the
series,
teachers that
adaptation
goes
to
into
the
the
new
room and
series
helps?
That we're not quite on track.
Yes, but I know what you're talking about. Yes.
Can you
Basic.
explain it to us?
Yes.
Well, we got rid of the basic skills
Basic
math,
skills.
but we do have the teachers that teach the IEPs and whatnot. Don't they go in and help
Carol,
sometimes?
I'll
with-
talk to you.
And like, but
Okay.
teach, don't they like tandem teach?
Yes, but what Mrs. Bites is talking to is that science and social studies are on a rotation. At least when I was the principal at Amity Elementary Center, and what would happen is science or social studies, whichever was falling prior to leading up to PSSA, the time was cut back within that area because there's no testing in that, and there's really no hard curriculum that we're following. And we did take time from that area to be able to give assistance to students who felt as though they were struggling or that we identified as needing additional help, that was something that 3rd grade teachers had done, because that test is kind of hits them twice, as Mrs. Kiesel had referred to, that the data is counted twice for 3rd grade. So it is something that had been done, and it had been done consistently when I was there, that we would rotate it out and just opt it.
I think it just illustrates what
Right.
our administrator, what our staff has to do to accommodate to address these tests. And they're testing PSSA
Right.
in April.
Right.
And we have a whole year of curriculum. So
And
they
this
gotta
was way
come back.
before Common Core as well. I just
Right,
wanted to
right.
mention.
That's what I
Right.
said.
All right.
This is
We need
PSSA.
to adjourn the meeting because we have an executive session. Is there public comment? All right, no public comment. All right, the meeting is adjourned. The meeting is adjourned at 6:19. Thank you.